Okay, so in this episode, I'm going to show you how to make the most amazing dish using pork belly. I'm going to show you how to put your skills to the test to make the most amazing pork sauce to go with it. It's a little bit sweet and a little bit sour, which is really going to bring out the pork. And also a couple of my favourite sides to go with pork. So we've got some scallop, some asparagus, and some lovely fresh apple. So let's start cooking. So first things first is your belly pork. So obviously very, very fatty cut of meat, amazing marbling in there as well. What I like to do to this is I brine the belly pork. The reason behind doing that is it seasons the inside of the meat. And I just find that sometimes, you know, if you're going to have something like this, if you spend a little bit of time and give it a bit of TLC, you end up with the most phenomenal product, which I think can stand against anything else. Nicer than a pork fillet, definitely more flavour than a fillet steak. People should be championing cheap cuts of meat a lot more because there's more flavour in them. They're absolutely amazing. So, the brine. 1 litre of water into a pan. And then, in here what I've got is, I've got 400 grams of Maldon sea salt. Now you might think that that seems to be a lot, but you're working with a piece of meat which is really, really thick, and it needs a while for it to penetrate to the centre of the meat to get all that flavour in there as well. So in here, I've got the salt, I've also got bay leaves, thyme, I've got some garlic which I've just chopped up, and then I've got some peppercorns and a little bit of Chinese 5-spice. For me, Chinese 5-spice and pork is amazing. It's got them almost like aniseedy notes to it, which makes this even more delicious when you're making it. So, water on the stove, 1 litre of water. I'm just gonna pop in all the rest of the mix, give that a little shake. I'm gonna bring that up to the boil. Once that's been brought up to the boil, so yeah, bring this up to the boil now. Once it's been brought up to the boil, we take it off the heat, let it cool down, and then we're just going to soak our belly pork in it. I do it for 24 hours. Just pop it in the fridge, 24 hours. And a really, really good reason that I'm showing you this dish is because I like to plan ahead. It's the only way that you can work in a kitchen. We've got to plan ahead. The customer can't come in and order a piece of belly pork and expect me to cook it there and then for them. The process takes a long time. So we always plan ahead to make it far easier in service, and exactly the same thing can be applied at home. If you plan ahead, it makes your life so much easier, whether you're cooking for a dinner party, whether you're cooking for your family, whichever way you want to do it. So this recipe that I'm about to show you now, it's really, really stress-free. Over a couple of days, 10 minutes maximum of your time to get the best quality pork product at the end of it. So all I'm going to do is, brine's been brought up to the boil now. I've just dissolved all that salt. And then what we do is, we strain that once it's cool. Once it's strained, it's in a jug. We just pour that over the belly pork. Once it's been poured over the belly pork, like I said, 24 hours in the fridge. Take it out of the fridge, wash the brine off, and then I'll show you the next process. Next part of this stage is pork belly's been in the brine now, and it's one that we prepared earlier, and it's been in overnight for 24 hours. So all we do is take it out, just give that a nice little pat dry, so there's no excess moisture in it. Same with the other one. You can actually see the colouring on it start to go quite white and in colour, and that's just where the salt started to penetrate it. So give that a nice little pat dry, like that. Get rid of your brine. And then for the healthy part. So this is the healthy part. So in here, we've just got some vegetable oil. Again, I'm just gonna put in a little bit of thyme in there as well, a couple of sprigs. Season that up, some salt. And again, give that a nice little stir in. That's seasoned enough. I always check the season on that before it goes in. Belly pork goes into the oil. And this method's called confit, and it's an old French term, so you probably had confit duck when you've gone out to restaurants and things like that. And it's basically just slowly cooking in any sort of fat. You can also confit in stocks as well. I find that this process keeps the belly pork really, really moist, and it also makes your house smell incredible when it's in the oven overnight. So, belly pork's all patted dry. Totally submerge that into the oil. Now, this is, like I said, a low and slow process. So if I'm making this at home or if we're making it in work, one of the last things that we do before we all go home in work at night time is our belly pork sat in the confit oil. We then take it out of the fridge before we go home, turn the oven on 90 degrees. By the time we all start work again in the morning at 8 o'clock, it'll be lovely and cooked and it comes straight out of the oil. And then I'll show you the next process. So if you're at home, don't be worried about turning your oven on overnight. Your belly pork is not going to burn, and it's not going to burn the house down at 90 degrees. All it's going to do is, when you wake up in the morning, make you really, really hungry because your house smells amazing. So get this in the oven now. 90 degrees. Okay, and then we just wait for that now. So go to bed, oven on 90 degrees, wake up in the morning, and I'll show you the next stage. Okay, so next stage now, one that I prepared earlier. This has been taken out of the oven now, and I let that cool down because you don't want to try and touch the pork straight away when it's hot out of the oven, because it will burn your hands even though it's only been on 90 degrees. Once you've done that, get yourself something heavy. So again, I've got 2 of these cast iron pots. You can use 2 pans, whatever you want to do. And what I do is just get a small piece of grease-proof paper, your belly pork, because it's gone nice and cool. Just take that out of the oil. Stick that on top of that grease-proof paper. Another piece like that goes on top. And all you want to do is take your belly pork, put that back into the tray. Heavy tray on top again. And like I said, it's all in the prep. Nice and heavy. And just pop that in the fridge. Leave that in the fridge for another day or whenever your guests are coming around. And that'll be nicely pressed so you can get a lovely, straight, even carve and cut the belly pork up whatever shape you want. And all we've got to do now is make all the other bits and bobs that go with the dish. But yeah, that's all cooked now, ready to go. The next process is probably one of the most important processes of the whole dish. It's going back to the first recipe that I showed you guys, which was veal and chicken stock. This is where I'm going to show you why it's needed to finish off the next recipe, which is going to be pork sauce. So to make the pork sauce, any butcher will have this. When you ask for your belly pork, you can ask it with the bone on or bone off. Any trim that's left off, just ask your butcher, please, can I have 500 grams of pork trim chopped up for me, please? And any butcher will do that for you. So pan on the stove, make sure it's nice and hot. In here again, just plain vegetable oil. You can hear the heat from the pan. And all we want to do is we want to take our lovely pork trim, add that to the pan. And what you want to do is you want to get a nice caramelisation on that. You'll hear that's full of fat as well. You can hear it spitting and popping. Okay, right. While that's on the pan, again, onions, get them nicely chopped. You don't have to slice these in any fancy way or anything like that. It's up to you if you want to be all chefy and start doing that, but if you're at home, just watch your fingers. Now with this sauce, you can get this done the day before. You can get it done on the day. It's entirely up to you, but for me, I like to be organised, so I'd recommend that if you've spent a lot of time and care and attention going into the belly pork with the brine and the confit and all that process, maybe just give yourself a little bit of time when it comes to making the sauce, because you spent all that time making the stock. You want the finished product that's going on the plate with the dish to really, really shine. So the way to do that is just take your time. I'd probably say do this the day before. So if you were going to make pork for Sunday lunch, for instance, I'd get my pork in on a Thursday, I'd brine it Thursday, take it out of the brine on Friday, I'd confit it overnight, take it out of the confit on Saturday, press that on Saturday, and on Saturday morning, while that's pressing in the fridge ready for my Sunday lunch, I'd take my time and I'd make my pork sauce. Once that's done, I'd pour that into a nice little container, put that in the fridge for Sunday. So then Sunday is no hassle, no drama. All you've got to do is take your lovely piece of belly pork out the fridge, put your sauce in a pan, and when everything's coming together, just reheat everything. It's the best way to be. So, as you can see, the pan's nice and hot. So the belly pork, you get a nice caramelisation on that. And like I said, make sure you get a good caramelisation on that belly pork. So in the pan, we're going to hit that with our onions. And it smells amazing. So all the onions straight into the pan. Like so. At this point, don't start worrying about adding seasoning or anything like that. We can do all that later on in the process. So while you're getting a good caramelisation on that, I'll take you over. So you remember you got our lovely brown chicken stock and veal stock. So in here we've got about 800 ml of chicken stock, and in here we've got about 500 ml of veal stock. We've also got some lovely cider. It's up to you whatever cider you use. I like quite a dry cider, but you can use sweet as well. But you've just got to remember it will affect the balance of the sauce. But with me, I think a little bit of sweetness with the pork works well. So to balance that sweetness, what I've got in here is I've just got some normal ready-made squeezy honey, and as well I've got a nice little bit of sherry vinegar. I like to add that almost like sweet and sour flavours to the sauce. So once all that started to caramelise down, and you get a lovely bit of colour on it, what you want to do next is add your honey to it. Make sure you get right in there. Honey goes in. Give that a bit of a stir. And all the natural sugars in the honey will start to caramelise in the pan. And you'll notice that, you'll start to smell it. It starts to bubble and it starts to almost go as if like you were boiling sugar if you're going to make, I don't know, a fudge sauce or something to go with your sticky toffee pudding. So when that starts to caramelise down, you can almost hear it. I always say when I'm making a sauce, you can kind of listen to when the next stage is happening. So you listen to when the oil's hot and you add the pork, it sizzles in the pan. The next stage is you add the onions, but the coolness of the onions and the liquid that comes out of them, that kind of cools the pan down a little bit. And now you can almost hear, as I'm talking to you guys, I can hear that honey starting to bubble away and caramelise, and I can actually see it in the side of the pan. So what you want to do is make sure your heat is really, really high on this. Remember, like I said, with the chicken stock and the veal stock, you've already got your flavours in the stocks. So when it comes to the sauce, you can make your sauces really, really quick. So on average, 25, 30 minutes, your pork sauce is done. And I know it might seem, oh, well, a bisto's a lot quicker. It won't taste half as good as this, I'm telling you now. So I can hear that is now starting to bubble and caramelise. What's happening there is I've used a wide base pan as well. Try and use a wide base pan when you make sauces, because if you use a small one, it takes a lot longer for everything to reduce. Because it's wider, it reduces a lot faster, it doesn't create as much condensation, and what you end up with, it goes a lot more caramelised, the honey. So we can hear that now, caramelising away, starting to bubble. If you have a look around the sides, you can see it's bubbling away as well. And that's where the honey's just starting to catch. So when you're at that stage, and it's really starting to coat the pork, I can hear it now, really, really caramelising. What you want to do is hit that with your vinegar. And what the vinegar is actually going to do is it's going to deglaze the pan. So this is what's going to add that sweet and sour element to it. So vinegar in. Give that a nice stir. Try not to get your head completely over it because you'll cough. So let that reduce because you also don't want your sauce to taste too vinegary. And at this stage now, I just add a little bit of salt because I also want the salt to be cooked out during the cooking process. If I season at the end, you can end up with it, you can feel the salt textures of graininess in your mouth. So, in with the salt. Give that a nice stir. Now to the next part. Brown chicken stock, veal stock. Started to reduce. I've got a good reduction on that now. It's about halfway down, the vinegar's gone. All I'm going to do is hit that with my chicken stock. Veal stock, so you've got all that lovely flavour of the caramelised pork, and that is what is creating the flavour of pork sauce. When you actually taste it, it tastes of pork. It doesn't taste of veal bones, doesn't taste like chicken wings. All the flavours come out of that gorgeous caramelised pork meat. So you'll have a really, really intense, sweet and sour pork sauce to go with your belly pork. Now, being a northern lad, I love a bit of cream. So I'm gonna add a little bit of double cream in there as well. And a tiny bit of butter. I think there's about 250 grams in there. I'm just going to leave that on, simmer away, and exactly the same sort of idea and process of the veal and the chicken stock. We want to bring that up to the boil, and then we want to reduce it really, really quick. And halfway through the reduction process, I will strain it to get all the pork and the onions out of it, because they've been in there for long enough, and then I'll carry on with another reduce, and that will then leave us with the lovely pork sauce to finish the dish. Okay, so next stage of the pork sauce. This is reduced by about half now. And as you can see, I've added the cream and I added the butter before, but you can see how dark and rich the sauce is still going. So what we want to do now for the next stage is a little bit like the veal and the chicken stock. We need to pass that, get all the little chunks of pork and all the onions and stuff out of there. And now it's the next stage, which is reducing, ready to the pork sauce to be finished. So I'm quite lucky. I've just got a little chauffe basket, a little basket which we use for vegetables in the kitchen, and we can just heat it in the hot water so we don't have to use a ladle. And all we'll do there now, that goes in there. A little sieve on the top, because I haven't got a little assistant, so give me a hand, but get somebody to help you. And then all we're gonna do, pour the pork sauce out. Make sure you get everything out. Straight off, and then now pop that back on the stove again over here, bring that to the boil again and reduce that right down to the consistency that you want, which is going to be your finishing sauce. Pork sauce, we're at that stage now where it's ready, so we've reduced that again down by half. And you can see it's gone that lovely, dark, rich, shiny colour. So just test that. Sweet, sour, absolutely delicious with the pork. And all I'd say to do is, because we're making this the day before, which I suggest you do at home, just, because this pan's so large, just decanter it into a smaller pan, like that. And I mean, you'll see, straight away, you'll see the lovely shine on the pork sauce as well. Decanter that, let it cool down, and then just pop that in the fridge. Leave it for tomorrow, on Sunday when you're doing your Sunday pork, whatever you want to do. When people come round, no stress, no drama, your sauce is ready. Put it on the stove, it's ready to go when everything else is ready and cooked. We're now going to bring all the dish together. We've got our belly pork done, our sauce is made, and here's a couple of little garnishes that I like to go with it. So, I've got some lovely asparagus, which we've just cut up. The tips that we've discarded, we made into a lovely asparagus puree. I've got some fresh apple and just a lovely hand-dived scallop, and that's all to come together. So I'm going to show you how to finish off the belly pork. So with the belly pork, you'll notice on top, you've got that hard skin. Now that will just rip off, tear off like that. So all you want to do with that, just discard that, because you don't need that anymore. And then you're left with your meat all like that. Now it's up to you, chefy way to do it, like we do it in the restaurants. I'll just neatly trim it up. I can use that for some sandwiches or for some stuff. And then cut my belly pork into nice slithers, like that. And be quite generous with it. I think 3 nice strips if I was doing it in the restaurants. At home, you can cut it into whatever shape you want. You can serve it like this. If you're really greedy, you could eat the whole thing. But what I'd suggest is you want it to kind of look as close to we'd do it in the restaurants as possible. So make sure that your pan is nice and hot. All we're going to do now, add a little bit of plain vegetable oil in that pan. Goes our asparagus first. It doesn't take long to cook the asparagus. Belly pork, all we're going to do, give that a nice little season. Asparagus in the pan, give that a nice little season as well. Belly pork's all chopped up, seasoned nicely, and all we're going to do, belly pork, flat side down. The reason I cut it like this, nice and thin, is because it doesn't take long to heat it up as well. So, on the stove, with your little puree. And like I said, when people are coming around, everybody's sat, everybody's at the table. This is the stage that I'd start doing this now. Everything else has been done, all the long-winded prep. So it's just about bringing the dish together. So, give your asparagus, nice little turn. Belly pork, you'll see, starts to get a nice caramelisation on it. In here, we've got our nice scallop. Give that a nice little season up. All go in the same pan as well. Scallop. So about a minute and a half either side. Nice hot pan for the scallop. Asparagus is cooking down really, really nice. A lot of people always think that with vegetables and stuff that they've got to, you know, boil it and boil it and boil it. Well, you don't. Things like asparagus, they love like barbecues, quickly cooking them in a pan. You get a nice charred flavour to it as well. So you can hear that belly pork popping now. See that nice caramelisation on the belly pork? Puree is getting all nice and warm. Our sauce is ready. There's no stress because everything's been prepped and all pre-done. And I'd have this as a main course if we were serving it in the restaurant. And it's up to you guys at home. You can serve a little bit of mashed potato with it if you'd like. One other little thing that I've done here is I've just got some nice little fresh apples which I've diced down, reduce a little bit of apple juice so it goes to a caramel, and then all we do with that is just pop the fresh apples in it, so you've almost got like a nice caramelised apple to go with it. So puree's nice and hot, everything's coming together. Take that off the stove. I've got a little tray here with a piece of J cloth on. That's just to get any excess oil out the pan, especially the asparagus. Scallop's got a lovely roast on it. Asparagus, nice and ready. Same with the belly pork. While the scallop's cooking. Again, with the apples, pork and apple is absolutely delicious. So what we've got here is just some nice Granny Smith apples, throw them in a pan, tiny little touch of brown sugar, a little bit of butter, and we cook them down on the stove. So a few nice little blobs of the apple puree over there. Belly pork, it's up to you how you want to plate it. Dot that around the plate like that. Asparagus, again, one little piece there, little piece of asparagus there, maybe one there to give it a bit of height. Get your nice asparagus puree. Okay. Here I've just got a little bit of oil which I've made from tips of the parsley. Let's just spread that around the plate a little bit as well. Scallop, ready to go. Get that out. Now with the scallop, I like to, just after it's cooked, give it a little slice in half. That's lovely cooked in the middle as well. Turn it over. Nice little pan-fried scallop on top of the belly pork. Nice little apples, we diced up, over the top. Okay. And you've got some lovely little fresh apples as well, just to cut through it all. So just place them all around your dish. And then, to finish that off, your lovely rich pork sauce. You don't want loads of this. It's really, really rich. It's really, really intense. A sauce like this, you know, I would give no more than a few little tablespoons if you drizzle that with the oil as well, it splits out so it gives it a nice little effect on the plate. And then just to be a little bit more chefy, we've got a little powder which we made from asparagus as well, just to cover over the top. And there you have it, pork belly with apple, scallop, asparagus and pork sauce.